All right, hello and welcome back to my setup for the Silk Road Mountain Race. This is part 3 talking about my repair gear. So the gear setup was, or the repair gear was pretty substantial because I was riding in Kyrgyzstan, very remote sections, over 1,100 miles. So wanted to make sure if I was in a pinch, I had what I needed to get myself out of that pinch if I had a mechanical or some sort of issue that prevented me from moving forward. I'm pretty competent with general bike repair stuff, so that's one thing I would say is make sure that you're competent in terms of repairing the setup that you have. I chose to go with a pretty easy system overall. So if you watched part 1 of my bike setup, you'll see that I went with cable actuated brakes and shifting system. So I didn't have to worry about electronics or hydraulics with that setup. So a little bit better for ease of use, but for efficiency, there might have been some drawbacks. Having the cable actuated brakes was definitely a little bit tiring for some of the really long descents. So going back, I would probably go with hydraulic disc brakes, but I went with the cable disc brakes and it worked. I didn't have any issues. All right, so before I do an overview of these items, I just want to let you know that I'm going to have a list of everything in the caption, in the comments. So if you want to take a look at that list, if you want to save it for yourself, feel free to do so, because there's one caveat with this. There's one caveat with this. I don't have everything with me that I used for the race because I changed out brake pads. And also I don't have my tubes. So during the race I had 2 spare 29-inch or 700C tubes that were good for 2.1 to 2.2 inch width tires. And I kept those all the way in the base of the saddlebag just to have the weight there. And knowing that I would, hopefully not need to get to them, they just sat there the whole time. And I was very fortunate to never have a mechanical and not actually have to use any of this except for just like basic tinkering things. So I used a multi-tool to adjust my cleat position. I used chain lube and a brush to take care of the chain, but I didn't have any real repairs that I needed to do or mechanicals. So I'm super grateful for that. All right, so let's start off with the pump. This is a Blackburn Mammoth pump. Really simple, not terribly lightweight. It's pretty cheap. I bought this new a couple months before the race because I had an older one that I got at a garage sale for $5 and it lasted me like 3 years. Same brand, Blackburn Mammoth. And so I was like, that worked. I'm just gonna go with that again. I'm not really a fan of like the really ultralight pocketable pumps just because for something that's really valuable, if you're in the middle of nowhere and you have a flat and you have a tubeless setup, I've been able to reset a tubeless setup with a hand pump like this. Naturally, the sealant helped, and I didn't fully lose like the bead attached to seated to the rim, but I've been able to to reinflate a tubeless setup with a hand pump of this size. So it gets pretty good volume, but if I had a smaller hand pump, then that may not have been the case. And I do have a backup if this doesn't work, which is a CO2 canister. But yeah, this is great. I just attach it to the frame. It just sits right next to one of my water bottles, and I keep I keep the nozzle side up a little higher on the frame, just so that it's not getting, you know, caked in mud as much, and I rotate it away from the ground. So yeah, this was great. Fortunately, never had to use it. Well, in an emergency, there were a couple times where I felt like the tires were getting a little deflated, so I just, you know, used this to repump them a little bit, but worked great. And then I have my Gorilla tape wrapped around here, and then some electrical tape here. So if I was ever in a pinch and needed some tape, it's all right there for me. Next, I had some sealant, 2 ounces of sealant, backup sealant, which I also kept in my saddlebag with the 2 tubes, because I was hoping I'd never have to use it, but if I needed it, I had it, just to help reset a tubeless setup, something like that. I will say, stands is fine, but I much prefer Orange Seal Endurance. So what I did was took out the stands, put it in another bottle, and then put Orange Seal in my stands bottle so that I had it for the race. Something a tubeless setup or a tubeless sealant that I know I really like and has worked well for me. So Orange Seal Endurance is what I had in my stands tube. All right, next. Apodura top tube bag. This is the smaller of the two and an older version. This thing I've had since 2017. It's been on me through thousands and thousands of miles and probably 6 to 8 bikepacking races, ranging from 200 miles to Kyrgyzstan, or the Silk Road Mountain Race. And I love this thing for to be utilized as like a quick repair needs. So in here I have a MSR dish scrubber. This is really helpful for the chain, and if there's any like mud or gunk that I need to get off, I can also use the edge to kind of like scrape it off. But this has seen 4 or 5 races, and I use the brush. It's dirty. I use the brush very often, multiple times a day, especially in Kyrgyzstan because it gets super sandy. So if I'm near a water source, I'll just, you know, take my water bottle, spray the chain, brush it down, and then I have typically it's very easy to like find a rag when you're riding. So sometimes I'll just have like a rag that I found on the ground, because it's gonna get dirty from the grease anyways. But as a backup, I have a sock in here as a rag if I need to dry the chain. But MSR scraper, and then I really like Dumont dry lube. This thing was full when I bought it for Silk Road. I used it a ton because the terrain was really, really trying on my drivetrain. But yeah, definitely want some lube. This is a Crank Brothers M17 tool, multi-tool. I had to use it once to adjust my cleats a little bit because my knee was acting up. And so just repositioned my cleats and I was good to go. If I end up puncturing, losing my tubeless for any reason, this is the backup to my hand pump. And if the hand pump is broken, because in cold conditions where, you know, you're facing negative degrees, a lot of pumps have, you know, rubber parts in them. They have plastic parts, so they are susceptible to breaking. This is a backup in an emergency. 20 grams CO2, and yeah, just this is a great way to reset your sealant or your tubeless setup in a pinch. And naturally, just a Park Tool patch repair kit. So I had the rubber glue, vulcanized rubber patches of different sizes, along with some glueless patches. If I had to, if I had to switch to tubes, because my tubeless setup wouldn't reseal, then I just like having a variety of things. And then the like sandpaper that comes with the kit. So one last thing is tire levers. I really like these. The brand is Granite tire levers. I really like these because they double as a way to break a master link or to set it if you need to. They also hold a quick link if needed as a backup. All right, so that's what I had in this. So it's just quick repairs. One thing that I did have in here, which I don't have in here right now, is a Gerber Dime, which is just a multi-tool that has pliers, a little knife. It's awesome to have pliers, just in case as a backup. If you need to do any repairs with spokes, I have a Fiber Fix spoke repair kit in here, which I've needed to use pliers for. Or if you need, they're needle nose pliers, so if you need to pull something out of your tires or pull something out of tubes, then that's a great option for that. So Gerber Dime is great, really tiny, just another tool to fit in there. Now the next thing, this is for the more in-depth repair stuff. So this was sitting under the down tube of my bike in a water bottle holder. And this, fortunately, I never had to touch, but in the event of more catastrophic mechanical issues, I had this. Now, as I mentioned, I had a sock in here as a backup rag, but it also doubled as a way to kind of stuff things in here without having them rattling. So this was a great way to just kind of like keep things tucked in there and keep me sane without having the noise of stuff rattling. So I had repair cables, spare cables, a spare brake cable, and a spare derailleur cable. And then within the sock is all the other items, which kind of like get stuck together. So I'm just gonna dump it out here and we'll go over it. As I mentioned, there are a couple things missing in this whole setup because they're either in use or I forgot to put them back. And one of those things is a spare set of brake pads. So I had spare brake pads in case the ones I used wore down. I use metallic sintered because they're a lot longer lasting, especially in the scenario of going through different terrain, you don't know what the weather's like because metallic's gonna last longer in wet terrain, muddy terrain, that type of stuff. So I highly recommend using metallic sintered brake pads and having a spare or two. I actually just, I think one factor of having mechanical disc brakes is that I wasn't as hard on the disc brakes because obviously hydraulic's gonna be a lot stronger. So I was actually able to finish the race without swapping out disc brakes at all, or brake pads. So the things I had in here, a spare plier, or a spare tire lever, just in case one of these broke, along with some more Gorilla Tape. Spare valves, in case mine got clogged, broken, anything like that, along with a little valve stem tool. And then also the Gerber Dime, which I didn't have in here but typically do, is a really good backup if you need to remove valve cores, because these little spare valve core removal tools can sometimes be a little tricky, and having the needle nose pliers can be helpful to keep the valve in place so it's not rotating while you're trying to remove the valve core. So yep, spare stems. Some Gorilla Glue. This has come in really handy for me if I've slashed the sidewall of a tire and I've had to sew it up. This is another form of just like reinforcing that sewing job to add a little bit more more reinforcement and strength to the sidewall of the tire if a repair needs to happen. And with that, I have some, this is an upholstery sewing kit, or from an upholstery sewing kit. So stronger fiber thread, and then a curved needle, which allows me to kind of like, you know, thread through the sidewall a little bit easier. A backup converter for Presta to Schrader. So if anything happened to my pump and it was broken, and fortunately, you know, it happened to be in a town, I had this as a converter just in case, you know, there was somebody with a pump that had, you know, a Schrader and I needed a converter. So really lightweight, always a good just like backup option to have. Now this is the FiberFix Kevlar spoke. This is a great option to just have as a backup, where you don't have to worry about carrying multiple different lengths of spokes. It only doubles as one spoke repair, so if you end up breaking multiple spokes, this isn't the best option, or you know, carrying multiple could be a better option, but it's going to help maintain the integrity of your wheel for a short period of time. This is not something you're going to ride on for long periods, but as soon as the spoke breaks, this is a great option to just tighten up that wheel and kind of like keep it in place, keep it from going out of true while you're riding. But again, throw this on, but you still got to get a new spoke on as quick as possible. This is just like an emergency get you out situation. Backup CO2 canister. A few different spare tire boots if needed. Fortunately, looks like I had 3. Fortunately, didn't need any of these. Some spare zip ties. I had more than this, but it looks like I took them out of my repair kit and have used them elsewhere. I need to resupply this. I think I had probably 4 or 5 different zip ties of varying sizes. Some spare fiber grip. This is just some paste to use to help tighten carbon fiber components. So it adds a little bit of grittiness. Just so, you know, if you have a carbon seat post and it starts sliding a little bit, you can just use this to put along the seat post and then tighten down again, and adds a little bit of texture and grip to prevent carbon parts from sliding. And then I had a lysine tire plug kit in case I had any big tire gouges or gashes, you know, just the bacon strips. Fortunately, didn't have to use it, but had it as a backup if I needed it. Now in here is just an assortment of bolts and cable ends. The last thing I want to deal with is like a cable end coming off and the cable fraying. So I just had one of these as a backup. Some spare master links. I had 2 sets of master links just in case. They're so light. It's not a bother to have a spare, but it is a bother if you need them and don't have them. A little chain length of the chain that I was using. I've never had to use this, but I have had instances on rides where I've had a chain break at a non-master link section where it shortened the chain, and I had to ride on a shortened chain for a little while, which just means the shifting was a little off. So I ended up bringing this just in case, and I had 2 master links. So if anything happened to the chain and I needed to readjust the length, then I had the ability to. A spare derailleur hanger. Fun fact, when I was shipping my bike on the flight, I did not take my derailleur hanger off. Highly recommend, I highly recommend when you're shipping your bike to take off your derailleur hanger. That was a mistake on my part. My derailleur hanger got bent during the transit from Portland, Oregon to Kyrgyzstan. And this is the derailleur hanger that was on my bike. I had to take it off and use my spare derailleur hanger when I got to Kyrgyzstan because the shifting was so bad that it took me a while. I was like, the bike was shifting fine before I left, and then I took a look at the derailleur hanger, noticed it was bent, and yeah, had to use my spare. So highly recommend having a spare. Spare cleats. Well, just one spare cleat, just in case something happens, along with the bolts. If you lose bolts, then you know, that's no bueno. You want to have working clip-ins, and then just an assortment of spare bolts. Most of them are just water bottle cage bolts because I have had water bottle cage bolts come out before, and you know, if you lose one, then that's really unfortunate. I do have a wolf tooth components bottle cage adapter to drop my bottle cage a little bit lower to account for the half zip bag that I have on top of my frame. So I have different size bolts based on the wolf tooth components. What's it called? The wolf tooth components adapter and the bottle cages. All right, so that was my setup for the Silk Road Mountain Race for my repair gear. Hopefully that was helpful. Again, I'll have a link in the description with all of the list of everything that I used, along with links if you're curious. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And if this was helpful and informative, I'm going to have some more stuff out regarding the Silk Road Mountain Race. And like I mentioned, my clothing setup, my electronic setup, that type of stuff. So feel free to let me know if you have any questions, and I'll answer them in future episodes. Thanks again.